one. So this is the Archaeology of Cymru. This is last but one lecture in the series. And I'm proud to announce that today, in the year 1400, on the 16th of September, this wonderful land of ours proclaimed its independence from the Normans and the English over the border. This is actually known as Welsh Independence Day. So I thought I'd mention that, and it's quite appropriate that the last slide that we see today is associated with Owain Glyndŵr, and this is Owain Glyndŵr's flag. Now, I've really loved doing these series of lectures, and to be honest with you, we've left the odd ones to the last. So we're going to be looking at caves today. We've got 5 that we're going to be looking at, plus a mystery one. So that's 6 in total. I know that I have visited one of these caves and been inside one of these caves, but the other 5 that we're going to look at are very much mysteries. And actually, I've already made a mistake. I've actually visited 3. But anyway, I visited one very deeply and explored it. So, with that little mistake to start off with, let's go with this sign. Passage to cave. And this notice is associated with Carreg-Cennen Castle. What we do often hear is that there are caves leading from castles to the coast and abbeys to subterranean worlds all across our land. But the locations we'll visit today are real caves, tunnels, passages, subterranean secrets. And each of the sites that we are going to visit have subterranean stories associated with them. They're not just caves with no backstory at all. So this is the pattern that we're going to adopt tonight. The writer H.L.V. Fletcher wrote of subterranean secrets. There's a tunnel going from our place to the abbey. That's for miles. Don't talk dull. Have you seen it? My grandsir said there was. So in other words, that paints something that I've already said about these subterranean landscapes. Do most of these caves and passageways exist? Well, actually, most of you from the local area may have heard of the story of Coity Castle having a cave leading all the way to the coast. Well, that's very, very unlikely. But I talked to an old boy, as you do, at Coity Castle, just on the outskirts of Bridgend in South Wales. And the old boy said that he had seen a tunnel and once explored a tunnel leading from Coity Castle. And he said it led all the way to the coast. In inquiring where this tunnel was, the guy said, I cannot remember, it was many years ago. And usually when we get tunnel stories, they're all like that, which is a bit of a shame, really, because it would be good to find a good old tunnel for me and Bill to explore. So the first place we're going to actually visit is the cave proper that I've been down and explored. It's not this one here, that Carreg-Cennen. It's not this one. And I wonder where this cave is. Well, actually, there's a great backstory to this cave, and it's somewhere on the Gower Peninsula. I don't think any of you will have been inside this one, and I haven't been inside this one either. But this is the inside image of this locality on the Gower. Do you know what I wanted to do? Was to visit Goat Hole Cave, Cat Hole Cave, and look at some real prehistoric archaeology. But that is actually for the next series of lectures. What I wanted to do is steep these caves tonight with legends and things that go bump in the night. And hopefully I will achieve that. Where are we going next? This is actually near the golf course. This is known as the wood of tents. In other words, coed and muster, the wood of the tents and the cave of coed and muster. And actually, where the cursor is there, approximately, maybe a little bit further up, that's where the cave entrance is. Now, this is a very queer one. And if we're going to do a bit of queer tonight, we may as well go to this one. We may as well get straight down to the undies and get excited. Look at this. 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 And where is Coed and Muster Cave? Well, the way to get to it, well, to give you an idea, this is the train line all the way from Pontyclun, running all the way through Llanharan and then going all the way into Bridgend. And on the right there, you can see a big clump of trees with little humps and bumps and things that go bump in the night. And this, in these woods, is a cave. Now, I have led about 4 expeditions. No, start again. I have led 5 expeditions in to find the cave. The first 3 I failed miserably. The 4th one, somebody had to be taken to hospital because they slipped. And the 5th time, we found the cave and everything went off fine. In other words, don't ever visit a cave with me. And Bill has learnt from that one. He's not the one that was taken to hospital, by the way. And to actually get to it, you've got to basically drive into the wonderful Coed Church. You can sort of go a little bit left, or you can sort of go into this wonderful landscape and look across. You've got a rugby field, and then you go across the rugby field, and then you see the woods, and you see some humps and bumps, and you go into the woods and you get lost and you can't find the cave. But if you're with me, you'll probably find it. Maybe not having an accident as well would sort of help. Mind you, the person who did have an accident didn't claim against our insurance, which is a bit of a shame, really, because they would have had about a £20,000 payout. But anyway, back to these woods. And look at the names for this cave. Coed and Muster Woods. Ogoff, Coed and Muster. King Arthur's Cave. And well, we can't mention Owain Glyndŵr and not mention King Arthur tonight, can we? Also, Ogoff Pantagog, Cuckoo's Hollow Cave, Pencoed Cave, Pebych and Merched Cave, basically the cave of the women. Ogoff of Pebych. You've got Obach a Pebych Bone Cave and Cave of Iltyd. All those different names for a cave, and a few other. It's also known as Courting Cave. And there was another name that, because we've got a youngster with us tonight, we're not going to refer to it by that. So in this cave, I've got some nice little facts to do with this cave. And I did find this on the internet, and I do believe this is actually one of mine, but it's a cave that gets very narrow and is a very dangerous cave, because in 1961 there was a death associated with this cave. Cavers went in very deep, and I think they got trapped and whatever, but there's deaths associated with this cave, this very haunted cave. And just where the person's standing is meant to be the place of the burial of King Arthur. Now, when the cave was excavated, I think there were excavations in the 1980s, and they found a huge hollow in the cave at the mouth of the cave. And it said that's where King Arthur rested. But then he was moved probably to Peter Supermontum Church by Brinner. And then the body of King Arthur was moved elsewhere. So, yes. Anyway, they found some artifacts that may have related to that period. But what is most important is earlier excavations, which we're going to tell you a little bit about in a moment. So, here are a few facts, but what I'd like to do is sort of mention a few things. So, I've got, this is one of two little cave maps that I've got. I didn't go any further with cave maps, actually. Is it quite, you know, doing an hour isn't a very long time, really. So the mouth of the cave, Heather, and you've got in the mouth is apparently the burial place of King Arthur himself. But obviously, I've already mentioned, his body was moved. So the cave is situated in Coed and Muster Woods. Wood of the Tents, again, marked on Ordnance Survey maps, which is near Pencoed. A path leads from the rugby field in Pencoed, as I mentioned, under the motorway to the woods. The entrance is at the near end of a small cliff, about 20 meters to the right of an old track leading up from the east. But access to that from across the river and valley is effectively blocked. So in other words, you've got to go a long confluted way to actually get there. There are several other small entrances along the small cliff to the north, which you can't actually get access through there anyway. The woods belong to Coed and Muster Canal Farm to the west of the cave. Requests to visit have been refused following at least 3 serious accidents, 1 fatal, involving loose boulders. The main passageway is 3 meters high, so you can imagine that this is quite a powerful cave when you actually get in there. And the main passage is 5 meters high because you've got to take in account of the burial place of King Arthur. And I'm actually saying it's more like 18 meters long, but it narrows considerably after 60 meters, beyond which dangerous loose boulders have limited thorough exploration of several sections of stable passage connected by unstable sections, crawls and rifts at various levels. So in other words, you could get into it, but you might die. You can see by these notes that very name there, excavated by the very John Story. John Story was the man who founded the National Museum, which was then Cardiff Museum in the late 1890s. And John Story did a lot of work in the local area. He was the one who discovered apostrophes, the Roman villa outside Lantwick Major. People know my thoughts on that, whether he was the first person to discover it or not. He also excavated the Roman villa at Ely, and he also excavated extensively in Barry and Barry Island and other localities. So it's interesting his name is mentioned. Now, the hole that was later found, believed to be associated with King Arthur, is probably the excavation hole left behind by John Story. But because I do know that some people that very much follow the Arthurian bent, I'm going to say that it's possible that maybe King Arthur was laid to rest there for a short period of time, and then he was moved on. And there were other excavations in the 60s and the 80s. So what I'd like to say a little bit more about this cave before we move on. And if you do actually get into this cave, the first 60 meters, there's these little holes that go off on the side. And and when we actually went into this cave, I think the 6th time, it looked like there was a body in there, and we all got very excited. So I had a bit of a stick, and I dabbed this thing, and it only turned out to be this big sort of duvet. Somebody had gone in there and left a duvet in there, and there was no body in there, so we were quite gutted, actually. I was hoping that it would be a body in there really well preserved, but there wasn't. You know, that would have been really exciting, wouldn't it, Goff, to be able to tell you the story of that, you know? But anyway. But
it would have been wonderful. You
know, if it was a beautiful woman, you know. Anyway.
Carry on. Get on with it.
Yeah, get on with it, exactly. So this itself, the other thing as well is that some people have mentioned that it might not be completely a natural cave. It might actually be a cave that had been mined, like many caves, that you find across the landscape that look like, you know, that they're natural, but it might be a cave that's been mined out at times when people have actually followed maybe a galena seams. But I don't have any more than that. So what I'm going to do now, so that's the one that I've thoroughly been into, obviously looking back into the back of the cave. And then there's this one. Now, I think some of you may have seen this, but this comes as a surprise to me, really, in that it's on the Gower, it's on the coast, and it's in a cleft in the rock along the coast, and it's been walled up like this. I've got a nice bit of history associated with it, actually, but it would be nice to look at a few more images. So this itself is a blocked up natural sea cave. And this was once formed through sea erosion and then through other erosion as well, other erosion elements. This is along the coast. Again, Culver Hole Cave or Culver Cave. And it's rather interesting because right down to the bottom, they have actually, well, I was going to say bricked it all up. They've stoned it all up. They've mortared, and you know, this will all be eventually eroded away because that's what the sea does. It takes back what it created. But there you go. It's actually quite off the ground. There used to be steps leading up to these floors. And obviously the floors have very much eroded away now. But if you can get somebody who's good at rock climbing up there, you can chuck down a rope and you can actually get in there. And look at that. Ooh, Jim lad, pieces of 8. So, oh yeah, I've done a bit of pirates now, haven't I? So I'll show you where it is. I know Ellen's going to be wondering where is it. So there you go, Culver Hole Cave. So this entire landscape is full of caves. You've got Pavlan Cave. You've got the caves in the Gower Park as well. You've got Tooth Hole Cave. You've got Cat Hole Cave and so on, and you've got loads of different caves. Basically, it's a very heavy, carboniferous landscape with lias limestone. And what happens is that the lias limestone gets dissolved quite easily, as opposed to the carboniferous rock, and that gets dissolved away, and that forms the cave networks. And why has that happened? Because many millions of years ago, 350 million years ago, Wales itself was basically underwater, right? It was an underwater landscape. It was formed under the sea, basically. And what happened is the carb lime, geological term, carb lime, carboniferous limestone, was then tossed up into the air to create large chunks of the mountainous landscape that you think of as Wales. And then the land dropped back into the sea. And then because it's under the sea again, within all that sort of eroded carb lime landscape, all that landscape that had sort of eroded away was all plugged up by lias limestone, and then is then tossed right up into the air again to create Wales. And then those caves are re-eroded, the soft lias limestone erodes out, job done, caves. So Culver Hole on the Gower is one of the strangest places in Cymru. Very strange place. And it's very strange. It's a mixture, as we said, of natural and man-made. It is reached with difficulty on foot at low tide by following the coast around to the north of Port Einan. I love Port Einan, but that's another lecture. Do you know what, Bill? I could take you to the salt house at Port Einan, but unfortunately, with these restrictions, I don't think we'll be able to get there for at least 2 years. 60 feet of rough masonry have been built to seal up a cleft in the rocks. There it is. Bingo. Nice. Love it. A tricky scramble gives access to a steep stone staircase behind the masonry, which leads to a small upper chamber. And we look at the upper chamber. There's the upper chamber there. Woo, spooky. The purpose of this construction has never been satisfactorily explained. It does look very much like a smuggler's cave, doesn't it? Really excited. This has got to be a smuggler's cave. And yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, you can see Jack Sparrow now, and yeah. But if it was a smuggler's cave, surely it would have been much too obvious for that purpose. Or was it some sort of fortress? Some sort of fortress built by whom? Very interesting. Very interesting. Built by the pirate John Lucas. Now, I love that sort of smugglers, pirates, things that go bump in the night. Culver, the word culver, C-U-L-V-E-R, on the other hand, is an old English word for pigeon, because if you look in there you go, pigeon roosting holes. And that's what you can see sort of inside. So pigeons roosting in there. Woo, woo-hoo, woo-hoo. So that's what culver means, pigeon. So inside, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can you keep pigeons on the coast? Well, obviously it must be. We suggest that the culver hole was possibly constructed as a giant pigeon loft by the Lucas family, who lived nearby at Salt House. The term culver hole is still used to describe a dovecote. So culver house, culver hole, that's the name, another name for dovecote, locally anyway. So that's what we're talking about. I like it when we got little mysteries, not that. So go and you can see there's a rock climber. There he is. And I do believe that looks like an old rope, doesn't it? I tell you what, I wouldn't be climbing up an old rope like that. Oh my God, what could happen? Actually, do you know, when we're talking about the history of Cymru, I like little stories about like this. Here we go. There is also a story concerning Prince Einion, i.e. Port Einion. So Port Einion. So Prince Einion, the Prince of the Gower, who after being defeated in a battle, not the Battle of Locha, as Pete might be thinking a little bit before that, decided to build a hideout here and retire from the world. You can imagine it would be great, wouldn't it? You know, you can imagine deliveries from Waitrose, internet connection, a few floors, a few windows, you'd be perfect. Until 1880, there was a passage connecting the culver hole with a cliff top above, hence the deliveries with Waitrose. In 1840, the local curate excavated the floor of the cleft. Now, really? And found several mammoth bones and a skull that was so large he was unable to get it out of the cave, so he buried it again, and this was never found. So, right, okay, I've had enough of little stories like this one. I do believe that Pavlan Cave has been faked, because we get a similar story with Pavlan Cave. Lo and behold, a mammoth skull is found there on the 20th of January in the year 1853. When in fact, it could be eroded away by the sea, and there's no way a mammoth skull could have survived that length of time in the cave when it had been, the landscape's being eroded away by the sea and water can get in there. And we got a similar story with this. So why don't people question this? There can't be mammoth bones in there, because they would have long since been washed away by the sea, because this was blocked up after the mammoths existed. Anyway, I do get very excited, don't I? But, you know, I'm allowed to get very excited. Where are we going to go next? Oh, I don't know. Where are we going to go next? Where is this? Where is this one? Now, oh, it's a place known as Ogof Ffynnon Ddu. Ogof, cave, Ffynnon, well, spring, Ddu, black. You can work it out. So this is the cave of the mysterious skeleton. And I like this cave because it's a proper cave network. So we didn't go to Danarogov today because I think we've all been Danarogov, but I thought this would be great because look at that. Look at that great cave network, huge cave network. Ogof Vananvi. And there it is. Basically, it's they've had to make entrances into there because the system had to be explored because nobody could get in there. It was, you know, it's a very strange one indeed. It's a mysterious skeleton was found in there. But before we do the mysterious skeleton, let's do the build-up. So, Ogov Vananvi. So it's above Swansea. And we don't actually go any further north than this actually today. And look at that there. Look at all the names. Bottom entrance. Skeleton Cave. And why is it called Skeleton Cave, Goff? Because a skeleton was found there. Diver's Pitch. Waterfall. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Why is that called Gnome Passage? Why is that called Maypole Inlet? Yeah, exactly. There's no gnomes in there. Smithy's Smithy's Armory, the columns. Anyway, all these different names to sort of understand it. And this is, as I say, it's a really nice cave network. So there you go. What we've got is we've got some views. This is known as the largest tunnel, Tunn, basically, there you've got the cavers in there. I tell you what, these bloody cavers in this are so vain. I could only get photographs of this cave with cavers in. Do you know what, right? When I do explorations like this, I never have my photograph taken, ever. You know, I'm not vain. And look at that there, the armory. Look at that there, whoa. Again, why that's called the armory, I don't know. It's easy when you got caves known as the Gnome Cave because there were gnomes found in there, right? That's a reminder, Rosamond. Make sure I got my painted gnome for Christmas. But anyway, again, I like that we've got a bit of archaeology and a bit of mystery associated with this cave. So looking at this, and the interesting thing as well is these caves weren't actually properly explored until the 1940s. There you go. So, you know, there's lots of cave networks around Cymru that haven't been found or explored yet. The chasm, Chasm. So you've got one called the chasm, naturally, because there's a little bit of a chasm leading into, yeah, you sort of know what I'm talking about now. So this is what cavers do. They like to give names to cave networks. Again, this is called the nave. And again, I found looking at these images very odd because I thought, has any of this been mined? And the answer is only bits of it, not the deep stuff. And you're thinking, this is all natural then. And you're thinking, wow. And obviously the lime has been eroded away over many, many thousands of years. Oh, we're not doing Tresillian Cave yet. Blow it. So I got to tell you that story, haven't I? Where shall I tell you that story? Ooh, there. Good. A mysterious skeleton found in Skeleton Cave. Yeah. A mysterious skeleton, Ogof Vananvi, in the Swansea Valley is one of the longest and deepest cave systems in the whole of Britain. Long ago. Here we go. Now, Goff, can you tell me what an animal castrator is? I didn't even look it up. Well,
see?
An animal castrator. I don't know what.
So it speaks for itself.
Does it? Anyway. Long ago, an animal castrator is said to have found his way into this complex network of caverns. The animal castrator disappeared from sight. He was last heard blowing on a horn that he was carrying. For centuries, no entrance was known to this cave, apart from where a spring emerged. But even cave divers could not follow this opening for more than a few yards. So nobody followed him into the cave. So the story of the horn-blowing animal castrator was regarded as merely a legend until in 1946, the system was entered through a hole made by digging and blasting. The first explorers discovered the skeleton of a young man in a small chamber, and they named it, guess what they named it, Goff? Skeleton Cave. It was found in a sleeping position, but there was no sign of a horn or clothing or even buttons to suggest the age of the skeleton. And I like that little story because they've got a legend and they've got a lad and they've got a body. So those are nice little stories like that. I like that one. I thought that was quite cute. I've never been in this one, by the way. Not been anywhere near this. I've been to Danarogov Cave, but haven't we all? Yeah, right. That mistake I made at the beginning, saying I've never been to any of the others, but I have actually been to Tresillian Cave. But I'm not really sure. I've been Tresillian Cave. There used to be a little bit more that you could get to, and I never explored that. So we're going to look at this wonderful Tresillian Cave, and what we've got one more full cave after this, and then what we do have is a cave associated with Owen Llawgoch. Okay, so that's where we're going to go next. So I just got to check something out a minute, right? I've just got to go to there. Everything's fine. Good. Right, here we go. So Goff, have you ever been to Tresillian Cave?
No, I haven't, just down Rogov like everyone else.
Well, Tresillian Cave is very, very close to us. And there's lots of legends associated with Tresillian Cave. It's not far away from Lantwick Major at all. And there it is. Basically, you might know of it by walking along the close from St. Donat's, going down some steps, coming into a nice little bay, and then going back up some steps and heading all the way to KARL-JAMES Bay, and then going to Lantwick Major. It's that one. It's given lots of names. And so that's the bay, and it's got some nice pillboxes there as well. So there's the cave as well. There it is. It's also known as the Marriage Cave. In Tresillian Bay is a large cave entrance that has many interesting stories associated with it. For example, on the west side of the cavern, there is reputed to be the entrance to a secret passage leading to St. Donat's Castle. In the late 1800s, a very old man told Mary Ann Robertson Spencer, a Glamorgan historian, and do you know what? Confession, I'd never come across Marian Robertson Spencer before, but she was a Glamorgan historian, that he could remember the entrance to the passage being closed by an iron door, which was washed away during a storm and never replaced. I don't know how that would have worked, actually, because this would have been much further out, and maybe there may have been a narrower entrance. I don't really know. And I would like to mention, this is sort of relevant. Me and Richard, we do research for a book that we're publishing on the history and archaeology of Barry and Carrickstown. And we went to this part of the landscape, actually, a bit further than Barry. And the amount of erosion that we saw when we compared maps from from the 1800s to now was quite considerable. So you can imagine when these stories are being thought about 200 years ago, this cave would have been quite considerable, but it's lots of it being washed away. There's a story as well associated with Peter the Pirate, a story that I tell when I go to, when we do the St. Donat's walks. Peter the Pirate is said to have been buried alive for his sins at the entrance to the cave. And in the light of the first full moon of the new year, he wails and cries for help that never comes. Now, it's quite a gory tale, actually. The way it goes, Peter's captured. He's not the same pirate that's tormenting Lantwick Major, the pirate O'Neill. But Peter the Pirate is buried in a rock cutting with his pirate outfit on, and he's laden down with rocks, and he sees the tide coming in and he's drowned to death. And actually, Peter the Pirate's also associated with Robinson Crusoe, because the story about Robinson Crusoe is based on a true story, and there's a link between Peter the Pirate, one of the Stradlins family, and the Robert Louis Stevenson story, Robinson Crusoe. So carrying on about this cave as well, and it was Robert Louis Stevenson actually wrote, or was it the Deval? Anyway, moving on. Traditionally, what were you going to say, Goff?
Yeah, you're right.
It was Robert Louis. Okay, good. Traditionally, this is also the cave of Dwynwen, the Welsh Venus. Now, Peter's been with me to Dwynwen's chapel on Anglesey, but she's always also associated with this cave, where young men and girls come to discover, in a test of tossing, how long it will be before they will be married. They would toss in the cave. This trial consists in accomplishing the feat of tossing a stone over the arch or bow of destiny, just under the roof of the cave. So the way I explain that is that you've got beds of limestone. So if you look at the beds of limestone, what's likely further in the cave is that there was a piece of limestone that was eroded underneath, and the soft shale above had been eroded, creating a little letterbox, which is a term that you get from Dana Rogoff. They use the word letterbox for such a hole. And so they would toss a stone over the arch or bow of destiny just under the roof of the cave. If the tosser succeeds with the first throw, then he or she will be married within the year. If one person tosses more than one stone over the arch, he or she will be married more than once. So that's your fate, isn't it, Goff? You've been married more than once. And there it is. There is the cave as well. So this might be familiar to some of you. I like this bay because it always feels nice and safe and cozy when you go down into this bay. And actually, can I just chuck another bit of history in? This was going to be a major holiday resort. The plan was that they would make money for the holiday resort from selling the limestone here to harbours over the water in Devon and Cornwall, because in Devon in particular, and definitely Cornwall, limestone was in short supply. So they were going to, that scheme started. But for reasons that I don't really understand, the scheme didn't go ahead. They built these great houses, and there's some other buildings there as well. And the scheme never got off the ground. So that's a little bit of history, and that's a pillbox there. And there, look at that inside. So, and when you go inside now, even in my lifetime, I've seen, you know, the cave is reducing in length. And the point I was making with this sort of arch is quite simple. You might get a bit of limestone rock that's still connected like that, and you just toss the stone over it. I wanted to be a tosser because I was going to enter the stone tossing competition because I'm quite good at doing that. And it takes place on an island in Scotland. So it's based on the amounts of the length of the toss rather than the skims across the water. So what we've done, we've now done Tresillian Bay. There it is looking out at sea. You can imagine the harbour here would have traded with Minehead and Porlock Bay and so on. And Bridgewater a bit further along as well, but unfortunately it never really took off. So this next one will be familiar to Pete. Now, we can't have Welsh Independence Day without a proper hero. Now, we've mentioned King Arthur a little bit. Okay, King Arthur's a proper hero as well. We've mentioned Owain Glyndŵr. Now, we're going to mention Owain Llawgoch. Owain Llawgoch. So we go to a passage that Peter's done with me. He's walked down this passage with me, good old Pete. And we're going to go to Carreg-Cennen Castle. I like this locality. It's a real oldie-worldy castle of the princes of Deheubarth, the princely kingdom of Cymru in the southwestern peninsula of Wales. A cave associated with Owain Llawgoch. Above the River Cennen and below Carreg-Cennen Castle is a cavern called Ogof Dinis, Fortress Cave. Many years ago, a local farmer is supposed to have entered it and found the cloaked and sleeping figure of Owain Llawgoch. We mentioned him a few weeks ago. He was the prince who come back to Cymru a few years before Owain Glyndŵr's independence movement in 1400. He was going to come over with an army, but it never happened because something happened to him. Owain Llawgoch, in other words, Owain of the Red Hand. So here we go. A local farmer is supposed to have entered it and found the cloaked and sleeping figure of Owain Llawgoch, waiting like King Arthur to be summoned to assist his country in a time of great danger. So you can imagine the farmer's entering the cave. Apparently, he has 51 comrades with him. And when they are woken up, there will be peace throughout the world. This wonderful factual figure from our wonderful past in Cymru would lead us into salvation and the world as well. It's quite a tall deal, that actually, but I love it. Owain Llawgoch is a true historical figure who was born in Cymru in around 1330 and served in Spain, France, and Switzerland. He was a descendant of Llywelyn the Great, Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, from the 1240s. Well, he died in 1240. So he's descended from the male line and a claimant to the title of the Prince of Gwynedd and of the whole of Cymru. His real name was Owain ap Thomas ap Rodri, and he was known by the French as Ivain de Galles, Owain of Wales. It's a surprising that it was once believed that he is sleeping in a Welsh cave, because it was well known that he was murdered near Bordeaux in 1378. But we're not saying, that's the point, we're not saying he was buried in this cave. We're saying that his spirit's in this cave, which is in fact a big difference from saying his body's buried in here. Nobody said his body's buried in here. And also, at another locality, which we're not going to really feature today, this is in Carmarthenshire. This is in Penarclean, which you can look up yourselves. I wasn't going to do this, but I want to now. A limestone cave called Ogoch Penarclean at the end of a quarry near Carmel in Carmarthenshire is also claimed to be the final resting place of Owen Llawgoch, claiming over Bordeaux. With his band of men, he was imprisoned in this cave by his enemies, who covered up the entrance. It is interesting that in the 1800s, the cave was opened up and 10 human skeletons were found. It is recorded that the skulls and bones were of large size than of the present race. Unfortunately, the quarry workers who made the discovery incinerated the remains in a lime kiln, keeping just one skull as a souvenir. What happened to it is not yet known. And actually, we've practically come to the end tonight. Almost. Ending a bit sooner than I wanted to. But if you ever get an opportunity to go into this cave work, it's a really interesting locality. But it's a very unstable underfoot. And there are some really interesting features like this. Basically, over time, you've got these stalagmites and stalactites forming in this cave, like old caves. We've not really mentioned that at all. And you look at this and you think, what a really intriguing feature. And I would recommend that anyone actually goes to Carrick-Kennen Castle, goes to see this wonderful cave. And some people actually believe that it's probably not fully been shaped by nature. It may have actually been carved out, and it may have actually been used to store things, store supplies. And if the castle was under siege, it would be very safe in storing supplies. And Carrick-Kennen was built, as I say, by the princes of Deheubarth, and it was one of those great castles that was not built by those damnable Normans. And finally, we're going to go to here. Moel yr Ogof. Moel yr Ogof. Moel yr Ogof is where we're going to go last. I wanted to keep all the caves to South Wales, but I thought, let's not do that. Moel yr Ogof. And we're going to look. Ogof Owen Glyndŵr. Moel yr Ogof. Bedd Gelet. Within that landscape of slate quarrying. And this is where we're going to end, really, because other than next week, this is the last but one lecture. And tonight we've mentioned Owen Glyndŵr, we've mentioned Owen Llawgoch, we've mentioned Llewellyn the Great, and in many ways, leading on to next week, this will be a fitting end to the lectures that we've been doing. So I'm really looking forward to next week and the mines and the bridges. I would say the bridges. This locality overlooks the mining landscape at Bedd Gelet. So in a way, we've also not only put legends, myths, and famous figures like Owen Glyndŵr. We've also added another string to our bow. This is said to be the entrance to an asbestos mine, but it's said to have very great ancient origins. And you never know Owain Glyndŵr may have gone to this cave once. But other than that, we don't have much more to go on than saying that King Arthur was at the cave at Pencoed. They may have been at these localities, but we don't have any firm evidence. Caves are fascinating localities, but you've got to be very, very cautious when you enter them, particularly the one at Pencoed, at Coed y Muster. And if anyone's been in any caves, just tell us a little bit about those caves in Cymru when we ask for questions. But I'd like to end there now. So, Goff, have you got any questions?
No, no questions. Very interesting, fascinating. Thank you very much.
I like that as well. Do you know what? I really like these evenings because, I don't know, it allows me to explore things that I've had questions on. And hopefully may we continue in that vein. Pat couldn't join us tonight. She gave her apologies. So what I'm going to do, everyone can take their mics off, unmute, and ask to unmute, unmute everybody. So I'm going to go to Pete. Any caves you've visited across our wonderful land, Pete?
Well, of course, that one at Castle Kennan we went down in. In fact, Owen went in front of me in case I fell, and we went down into that one. Well, I understood he went right down to the river in the valley below, and may have well been a source of fresh water in the event of the event of a siege.
Well, the thing is, you know what I said at the beginning, I may have actually, you know, I've said I've only been in one of these caves proper. I think I've probably meant that even though I'd been in that cave, I don't think we really understood it as much as we could have. And I think what you're talking about there, yeah, I've got something vague about that, but you weren't able to access all the way down to the river. That's a fact. You weren't able to get down to the river, but obviously it's a really nice cave.
There were so many slippery steps down there, I wouldn't go down because of my knees. But
that's right.
I stopped before we got right to the bottom.
That's correct, but it didn't go much further, Pete. It went, and I think they blocked it off or something. I can't remember.
May well have done, yeah.
I think it didn't go all the way down to the river anyway, but you might have a point. Because a fissure like that would want to drain off, wouldn't it? Want the water find its own level. There was no water in it other than the drips. So you're thinking it's got to go somewhere. So yes, we'll go with that. Ellen, anything you'd like to say?
No, but that was lovely. Because every cave has got its own sort of like feeling about it, doesn't it? And all caves, when you go in, you get sort of like a feeling. And then if you turn around and look out of the entrance, that is another feeling, isn't it? Like that view you gave of Tresillian one. So
yeah,
they're quite magic, each cave, aren't they?
And the cave of Owain Glyndŵr, as we looked out there, I wanted to leave that a mystery at the end. Owain Glyndŵr is a mystery. What happened to him? So there you go. I've left that one hanging at the end. Pam, anything? Try and keep this to sort of one sentence or a couple of sentences. Pam.
I haven't been to any of those caves, but they're nice photographs. I've been to a few caves, but none of those.
Okay, thank you for that. And Stav, anything you would like to say?
Well, I've been to Danarogov. That was a cave. And yeah, been to Danarogov.
And
how did you feel at Danarogov, Stav? You were a bit claustrophobic, weren't you?
Well, I was scared that the cave was gonna close in on us and that we might get crushed. Yeah.
Now, that's a good thing. I don't like going in caves at all because I've got this reoccurring dream that I will go into a cave one day and I won't be able to get out. Mind you, I feel that in the relationship with Michelle that I can't get out of that flipping act. Anyway, so Rosamond, anything you'd like to say?
Yes, well, Stav and I went to Danarogov, and that was a fascinating afternoon out. And yes, caves can sort of feel like they're crushing in on you, can't they? So,
Yes, yes.
yeah, I think I dived in a cave once. It's quite nice once you're through the tunnel and into the cavern itself. It's quite wonderful.
Yes, and
But
you've
the
got
journey can be a bit oppressive, can't it? Yeah.
and
But
basically
I
you've got
love tonight. And there's certainly places I'd like to visit from what you've told us tonight.
and basically
Stalactites
yeah,
in
and the Calder Cave.
Danny Rogov, the stalactites, they were amazing. The slice of bacon and the wedding cake and things like that, they were really,
Oh, it's an incredible
they were
cave,
really
isn't it?
incredible, yes,
yeah,
stalactites and stalagmites, yeah.
And I love the way
they
it's
definitely
been preserved and shown to us.
they definitely are. They definitely. And one thing I was going to do tonight, I was going to do. Thanks for those contributions. I'll ask Bill and Goff now. Well, actually, Bill. I didn't do Pontnew. I wanted to do so many of the caves in Wales. I didn't do any of the prehistoric bone ones because what we're going to do, we're going to look at Kent Hole Cave, and Pete knows exactly where that is in Cornwall. And we're going to compare with Pontnewydd, and we're going to compare with a cave in Cumbria, and we're going to do that in Orkney as well. So I've kept a few out deliberately, actually. And Bill, you've got the last word tonight.
I think we're very fortunate in Wales to have such a limestone landscape, which is where caves are formed, obviously, the Upper Swansea Valley, etc. I've been down to Carrick-Kennen, the cave there, and my understanding it was used as a dungeon, as well as a possible stone area, which is obviously the place to do it. Yeah.
All those ticks, yeah.
Yeah. I've been to a Tresillian cave a few times. Difficult to cross the bay there, actually, because there are large boulders, so it's easy to slip and do yourself a mischief there, but it's worth the effort to get in there. It really is, you know. Well, I missed 10 minutes of the talk, Carl, because of a phone call I had to go to. So I don't know if you mentioned the other King Arthur cave, which is near Tintern Harby. There's an outcrop there and a large cave which is known as King Arthur's Cave. So I'm researching if ever you repeat this sort of
That's true. You're breaking up a bit, Bill, but I got
Sure.
that about Tinton. And yeah,
there's so many caves.
Exactly.
Apart from being into.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up,
I'm
Bill.
dead.
You're breaking up. Yeah, no, that's right. There's so many
Okay.
that we could look at. There's so many, exactly.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's so
We can
many.
hear
There's so
you.
many. There's so many we can visit.
Oh,
But
okay, that's fine. Yeah. Well, that's
hello, everybody, still there? Hello. Hello, everybody, still there? Yeah. Hello. Hello, everybody, still there? Right, okay, everybody.
Little chat. Thank you.
Right, everybody. Right, Bill. Right, right, okay. Right, okay. We've got lots of problems with the sound tonight.
No
So
problem.
what I'm going to say is, right, Bill. Right, okay. We'll anyway. I'm glad you've all enjoyed tonight. And hopefully we'll see you all next Wednesday. Yeah. Hello. Okay. Okay, everybody. Okay. If everybody can stop talking, otherwise we're going to lose the recording. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I'll hopefully see you next Wednesday. And I'll see you. I'll see you people tomorrow. Okay. So I'm going to say good night to everybody. Good night, Pete. Thanks for joining us, Stav. Right. Okay. Good night, folks.